and welcome to Tope Sprinkle. My name is Tope if you're seeing me for the first time. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you all the lessons I learned from my experience as a first-time gardener with no experience whatsoever. So this year, I decided to grow my own food at home. And yeah, I'm going to be sharing all the lessons I learned with you in this video. So if you're interested, do keep on watching. First lesson, if you're going to be planting in a raised bed, then you want to make sure that it's in the right position. In terms of the amount of sunlight that you'll be getting, your plants will be getting, you want to make sure that that's right. If they are sun-loving plants, then you want your bed to be in a spot where there's enough sunlight to get to them in your garden. And if they're shade-loving plants, then you want to position your bed in such an area. Also, in terms of the position, you want to have access to your raised bed from both sides. In setting up my raised bed, I did that against the fence. So I placed it against the fence in my garden. And I did that because I thought it looked aesthetically nice. And yeah, I just thought it was going to look better for the garden. You know, it would just be there in its own space. But yeah, my back suffered for it. Like it was difficult on some days, especially when I had to do a lot. It was very difficult to get to the plants that were towards the fence. So I would say, yeah, give yourself room on either side of your raised bed so that you can access your plants from both sides to be able to care for them and plant for them. If I could, like, my back would have been thanking me, you know. But if you have no choice, then really, but I would advise that you do so. Don't be like me. And yeah, someone has advised that I get a kneeler, and so I'll be looking into that next year to save my back from all the pain from my bad choices in terms of where I position my bed. Second lesson, it's in relation to spacing. So when you plant your crops, your plants, when you put them there, you want to sort of space them properly. So seed packs will usually have like recommended spacings that I advise you follow. Don't be like me. So when my plants were quite young, I just thought, oh, they're small, you know, I think this is well spaced, it'll be fine. And yes, initially it was fine, but as they grew, the dynamics changed totally. My tomato plants grew to be very large and huge, and they grew way faster than the peppers I had. So I grew Scotch bonnet peppers and bell peppers, and yeah, they entirely shaded those plants. Those plants did not get as much sunlight as they would have gotten if I had spaced the bed properly. I had over 15 plants. I don't recall how many. I'll probably count and put the number on the video so you see how many that I had in the bed. Because the tomatoes grew and they were so huge and then they were getting all the sun, the Scotch bonnets and the bell peppers weren't getting as much sun, so they grew much slower. Thankfully, I somehow managed to stick the tomatoes in a way that the pepper plants still got sunlight, but the Scotch bonnets got more sunlight, and those ones ended up growing and producing fruit, whereas the bell peppers got less sunlight. They got the least amount of sunlight, and they tried to produce fruits, but it was just too slow and it was too late, and I didn't get anything this season from the bell peppers, sadly. So lesson for me, a lesson for you is space your plants appropriately and try to think about how they would look like when they grow, not just when they are young plants, because that would really affect the harvest that you'd get. In terms of maximizing sunlight, you know, if you have a crowded bed, then maybe plant sun-loving plants and shade-loving plants, and then put where I put my bell peppers and Scotch bonnet peppers. You know, it would have been good for shade-loving plants to be there because they would have still done well and thrived, and that they would have been okay. So that's my second lesson for you. My third lesson, which is sort of close to that, is don't give up on the small guy. You know, those guys, the plants that you have that seem like they're not going to do well and you're probably thinking about tossing. Don't do that. So my Scotch bonnet and bell peppers, they had some issues when they were young plants. I tried to feed them, and yeah, I think I overdid and they got scorched. Yeah, they were their leaves were like silvery, not green, and they didn't seem to be doing well. They were stunted for I think like 2 weeks. Decided not to give up on them. I still put them in the bed anyways, not expecting anything. But as I said, the Scotch bonnet surprised me. Even with like the limited sunlight that they got, they still produced fruit, and I was able to harvest some of them. and they were quite hot. They were spicy, hot. I think that was a success. The lesson is don't give up on the young plants. Don't give up on the guys that don't seem to be doing so well. My fourth lesson is I recommend you keep things simple. So in terms of the kind of crops that you grow, the kind of plants you grow, I would say start with the ones that are less prone to diseases, the ones that are most likely self-pollinating, that you don't have to be thinking about how to pollinate them. Yeah, so just sort of start simple, and then once you get into it, you can try your hands on plants that are more difficult to manage, things that are more difficult to grow. So I did potatoes, tomatoes, bell peppers, scotch bonnet peppers, kale, spinach, strawberries, and I think that's it. Yeah, and I think generally they were all sort of like easy to care for. Although some of them were quite fragile. We'll get into that later, but I'll say start with simple plants, and then also keep your tools simple. I know that it's very easy for people to just think, oh, I'm going to start gardening, I'm going to get all the tools that I need. I didn't start with that mindset, but I found that I ended up getting more tools than I actually needed, and some of them are just there lying in my shed collecting dust, not doing anything. In terms of the tools that I use quite often, I use my hand trowel, I use my hand fork, I use my hose and sprinkler head, I used a watering can, and that I used to feed my plants and feed my soil, not really to water. So I put the feed in there and dilute it and apply as is on the instruction of the feed that I used. I also got a few gloves. Some I bought one, and then I had like a few that came with other things that I ordered. But if you've seen my videos, you know that I didn't really wear gloves that much. I tend to just use my bare hands and yeah, on the deck. I don't think that's a good thing to do. Use gloves. Don't be like me. And I think that's about it. You also need a bag where you sort of store all your tools. If you're growing tomatoes, then you need something to stick them, so you can get like wooden stake or bamboo, and you need like twine or rope to tie them and hold them in place. You need your pruners, your shears, so you can use to take off all the bad leaves and just keep your plants neat and tidy and keep them disease free and care for them. So you definitely need pruners. But aside those, I think that's about all you need. Now getting to the technical bits. Yeah, I tried growing some kale and it was a disaster. I tried twice. So I guess I get marks for effort. I tried twice and yeah, it just didn't work out for me this year. I didn't harvest any kale. I saw them grow. They started germinating. I had leaves twice. But you know, other creatures were interested in eating the kale as much as I was. So the first attempt, you know, the kale was doing so well. I went to bed one night and then I woke up in the morning and then I went into my garden and then I didn't see the kale again, and I'm like, what's going on here? I seem to recall I had kale the day before, and even though I took a picture, I would have sort of doubted it, because I'm like, something like, it was just like overnight, and all I had left were stems. You know, the leaves were gone. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I found these little tiny green slim things, you know, in the pots, because I grew the kale in a plastic pot, and it turned out they were caterpillars for butterflies and moths, the cabbage loopers and cabbage worms. And so it occurred to me, that the butterflies I had seen flying around the pots the previous week, and then the previous weeks actually, so the week before and then 2 weeks before, I had seen like white beautiful butterflies come into the garden. I was like, oh, I'm doing so well, you know, I'm attracting the butterflies and all the pollinators. Nope. That's not what was happening. They were there to lay their eggs, and their eggs actually fed on my kale. So really, my kale was a meal for them. So I'd say prevention is what you want to do. So once you plant your seeds, then you get like a net to cover that. I tried that the second time, but I think it was just too late, and I didn't really change that soil. I sort of like trashed the top bits, but I guess some of the eggs were still there. And I actually also tried planting some onions, one onion in the pot, just to mask off the smell of the kale. But like I said, it didn't work. And the second time, the kale was growing. every day I'll go there and remove any caterpillar that I see, any green caterpillar thing. In the end, they ate everything and I just gave up, and it was painful, but you win some and you lose some. My final lesson in terms of like the technical things is, if you're growing tomatoes, then you want to stay on top of watering. So I had blossom end rot, which is essentially when your tomato plants start to brown or darken on the bottom and it stays flat, and you just see that there's something wrong and you think it's rotten, but it's not really rotten. And the reason why that happens is because the plant is not getting enough calcium, so it's calcium deficient. And in my case, it wasn't that my soil was deficient in calcium, as is the case with most gardeners. It was because the soil had dried out and the tomato couldn't get like the calcium that it needed from the soil. The soil was dry, so you couldn't get those nutrients from the soil. And so you want to stay on top of watering. And in my case, it wasn't that I wasn't staying on top of watering, but not as much as I should have. So I sort of had a schedule, and I was keeping by that schedule and just doing that. Whereas in summer, it got really hot, and in between my schedule, the soil would have dried out and the tomatoes would have, required more water, so they couldn't get the nutrients that they needed. And yeah, I had those, and it was really painful for me as a first-time gardener, because I was really looking forward to like getting my harvest real quick. So having to remove those fruits that had been affected by blossom end rot was really painful. But just because I didn't want to lose all of them, I didn't remove all of them. I left a few of them, and they actually ripened. Some of them grew slightly bigger, some of them remained that size. Looking back, I probably should have removed them just so the other fruits would have, had more time to grow, because the plant would have been putting energy into ripening and growing those ones that had the blossom end rot. So I think that's it for me. I think it was a successful first year. Yeah, it's a bit emotional to know that next year I wouldn't be a first-time gardener again, but I enjoyed it, and I'm sure like next year it will be even more exciting. I've shared everything from this season every day this week. So I started last Sunday, and today is the final part where I share the lessons. If you haven't seen those videos, please check them out. I'll link them up here. The playlist will be there for you to watch and check out. I share everything from setting up my raised bed, filling it up, starting with the plants. I shared like my harvest, showed how I cared for the plants, showed how I prevented blight, which was a big win because I didn't have blight my first year gardening, growing tomatoes and potatoes. So I think I'm very pleased with the results I had this year. It was very exciting. Like, I would literally come back from work, and the first thing I would do is to go to my garden, check on my plants, and it was such a joy for me this year. It brought me so much peace and joy, and I hope that gardening can be the same for you. Of course, there were frustrating times when, like, yeah, I found out that I didn't have any kill again, but even at that, really, I know that I fed some moths and caterpillars that will end up becoming butterflies, and we need more butterflies in the world. So really, I'm happy that I fed them, although next year I'll do better to prevent them. Yeah, I think I'll wrap up this video here, but just to also say congratulations to Argentina and all the Argentinians for winning the World Cup today. Today's 18th of December 2022, and they're the champions. Congratulations, guys. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for Messi. I'm also so happy for my husband, because he's a huge Messi fan, and this game meant a lot to him and me. Also, congratulations to Mbappe. He played really well. I hope everyone is doing okay in the run up to Christmas. I hope your families are doing well and you're doing well too. And yeah, I'm so happy to be doing this video today, talking to you in real time, because the videos I've been posting have been more like things that I recorded in the past, but we're coming back to present time content soon. I'll stop here now, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new. I'll see you again in my next one. Until then, stay blessed, stay safe, and bye.